What's up, guys? Today's a very special day. It's my birthday. I turned 26 today on February 3rd, and every year I usually do like a yearly reflection in my journal. But this year, I figured I would do it publicly through a YouTube video for two reasons. First, this has probably been one of the craziest and most transformative years of my life. So there's a lot of cool stories and lessons to share. Second, this year there's been one internal conflict that I've been battling with a lot lately that I think a lot of other people who are really similar to me might be struggling with too. The desire and ambition to do something extraordinary, but also live a normal life. You know those like motivational videos you see on TikTok and Instagram that are like,
he said, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
well, those videos make it sound like they're trying to tell us something that we don't already know. Most of us already know that in order to do something great, amazing, and extraordinary, we're going to have to put in a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. We know what it takes. But the more important question is it worth it? When we admire people who've done extraordinary things, we always think to ourselves, oh, how great it would have been to be like them. But we never think about all the things that Tom Brady, Novak Djokovic, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk have had to give up in their lives to get to the point they're at. For me, I want to work on something ambitious and extraordinary, specifically in service to others and to the world, because I think it'll provide meaning in my life, and I think I'll love the journey too. And I'm willing to give it all in that pursuit, but I'm also worried that if I do that, I'll regret not having lived a normal life, not having spent enough time with my family, not having been there for the amazing memories and stories with my friends, not having traveled through my bucket list, not having tried new hobbies and interests that seem really cool. But if I choose to live a normal life, I'll regret not having given it all in my extraordinary pursuit. As some of you might know, about a year and a half ago, I quit my job working in corporate finance. Why? I'm smart and ambitious, and I wanted to go off and start my own venture and make an impact by building the next big thing. This was my way of finding and doing meaningful work that would hopefully make my life more meaningful. And it's not just like some kind of like I'm bored and I need to make some grandiose greater purpose for my life. I actually kind of feel like I have a responsibility to use my gifts and privilege to pursue something extraordinary in service of others. Kind of like this is the reason that I exist. And having that reason is a really cool feeling to wake up to in the morning. And sometimes when I'm going out and having fun and doing cool things, I kind of feel guilty and burdened that I'm not working and fulfilling my duty. So I set off and told myself that I didn't mind the loneliness and hard work that would be required every day for this kind of extraordinary endeavor, and that it would be all worth it because it would be really meaningful to me and I would enjoy it, hopefully. But the problem is, now without a job and with full control over my schedule, I couldn't help but not exercise every day. I couldn't help but not go see my friends and hang out on the weekends. I couldn't help but not go on that trip every month. I couldn't help not pursuing new hobbies and interests like guitar and Spanish. My health, my relationships, these experiences and these adventures are all equally important, if not more important, to living a rich and fulfilling life. So I prioritize them too. But a year and a half later, I realized I haven't made as much progress on my pursuit of extraordinary service as I would have thought. At this point, I thought I would have found something that I'm really passionate about. I haven't. At this point, I thought I would have been making at least a little bit of money on some kind of venture, whether it's YouTube or something else. I haven't. I'm starting to realize that something needs to change, whether it's how I spend my time or even how I think about this extraordinary service, the extraordinary pursuit of service. So I spent a lot of time this past month reflecting and thinking about what went well this past year and what needs to change going into this new year. And I also spent a lot of time talking to my other friends who are also slightly ambitious, but still normal. And I've come up with 3 things that I want to keep reminding myself going into my 26th year of life, and hopefully can help with anybody else who's also similarly ambitious, but also normal. Okay, interesting thought experiment. Who is more extraordinary? Person one grew up really wealthy in New York City, inherited his dad's $300 million real estate business at age 25, but then actually went on to become president of the United States. Or person two, who grew up extremely poor in China during the Great Revolution, but then managed to work and study his way to find a job immigrating to the US, and then now lives an enjoyable and stable middle class life in the US. As you might have guessed, the first person is actually our one and only former president, Donnie T. And the second person is actually my dad.
Hi.
So, who was more extraordinary? Well, it's hard to say. Who had more impact on the world? Probably Donald Trump. But he also started with way more privilege and way more wealth. All of us have different starting points in life. And I'm not talking about just money. I'm talking about every little detail, whether it's in our genes, our hair color, our height, or in our situation at birth, where we were born, what time we were born. Every little detail impacts how our lives play out in ways that we can never even know. This concept stems from a theory called chaos theory, which states that small changes in the beginning of a system can cause huge differences in the end. The most famous example being how the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil could set off a chain of atmospheric events that eventually lead back to a tornado in Texas. So even identical twins at birth, who are almost the same in every single way, will still have tiny, tiny details and differences between the two, like literally who was born first by a couple of seconds and who was held by their mother first. That may impact how the rest of their lives pan out in ways that we'll never understand. All this to say, and not to be cliche, is that we are truly and mathematically unique. So it's pointless to burden yourself thinking that your version of extraordinary service needs to be the same as building a rocket to Mars or creating the next iPhone. We can't rely on comparisons to guide our measure of success and progress, because only you know your own starting parameters. This piece of advice and lesson is actually something that I've been experiencing more and more in my life over the past few years. Growing up, I actually thought that, I had control over every part of my life. That if something didn't go as planned, it's because I didn't work hard enough, or if something did go as planned, it's because of what I did. And I'm starting to realize that through, rejections to college, rejections to jobs, rejections to whatever, not even rejections, but just the way life happens is that you can try your best, but still things might not work out. And that's because the world is extremely chaotic, random, and unpredictable. And there are mathematical concepts to prove this, in stochastic processes or even in physics too, but you just kind of realize it in everyday life as you continue to live it. And so even if you have the same starting parameters as somebody else, there's a very small chance that you end up in the same place as they do, and there's an even smaller chance that you end up in the same trajectory as they do because of the chaotic and randomness of the world. So basically what I'm trying to say is that along our lives and journeys, we can't always rely on outcomes as measurements of our success and progress, because outcomes are heavily influenced by the world's randomness and by luck. The only things that we can truly evaluate are our actions. Okay, so think about this. Back in our hunter-gatherer days, our ancestors mainly worried about three things. The first is their own survival. Second is the survival of their family. And third is the survival of their tribe, in that order. And that's what their main responsibilities were. And that's really what provided meaning for them in their life, was surviving, which seems pretty meaningful to me. And that is how we're wired today. But now, in today's world, for most of us who are really privileged, we don't really worry about survival. We have easy access to food, water, and shelter. And with the internet, we worry more about everyone else and everyone else's problems than we worry about our own. We worry more about the impact that we'll have on the world and other people than we worry about the impact that we'll have on our family and friends and ourselves, even though that's not how we're wired. We're literally wired to care about ourselves, to care about our family and friends, to care about our tribe before caring about the rest of the world. And coincidentally enough, the things that we're wired to care about the most are also, for our benefit, the things that we can have the most impact on right away. So instead of focusing so much on how to have an impact, which is what I have been focusing on for the past year and kind of burdening myself with, maybe I should start focusing more on where I can have the most impact. And going back to chaos theory, who knows how caring for yourself will have a ripple effect and impact the rest of the world? And who knows how being there for your family and friends will impact them, maybe make them happier, and then maybe make them want to take that happiness and give it back into the rest of the world, and then maybe that will ripple into something else too. Who knows how these small little actions that you take every day where you have a big impact can ripple into the rest of the world. Like with YouTube, sometimes I think to myself, wow, this is like really trivial. All I'm doing is literally making videos about my life and me having fun, and it's not really like doing anything for society or really serviceable, like, you know, solving climate change I could be working on, or like something even bigger that would have a bigger impact, and I feel guilty about it. But maybe who knows that this one video will have an impact on someone else, will have an impact on somebody else, and that impact might even just end up at Elon Musk's office at Starlink or SpaceX and help some engineer, you know, launch the next Falcon rocket or something. Just theorizing. The coolest thing about chaos theory and everything that I've been talking about is that it kind of relieves the burden from us to balance something that we're really passionate about with something that's really serviceable with living a normal life. It basically lets you convince yourself and believe with mathematical rigor that what you can do now in a tiny ways can have a large impact. You just can't see it or identify it. The problem with us slightly ambitious, but also normal people is that we want to skip the small stuff and go straight to making the large, big impacts on the world. Even though doing the small stuff can have the most impact is easier, and I'd argue is probably more meaningful than tackling the bigger things. But the best part about the world that we live in now is that we have the time and resources to tackle both problems, the small and the big. We have the privilege to prioritize ourselves, our family and friends, our tribe members, our community, and also the world. And then when we start thinking about what kind of impact we want to make on the world, we can rely on chaos theory too. Do something you're passionate about, whether it's arts, finances, whatever. As long as you're passionate about it, you'll likely get good at it. And then you'll likely get extraordinary at it. And then all you have to do is just believe that it'll ripple into the world in the right way. Basically, what I'm trying to say is threefold. First is you can't really compare yourselves with others, like mathematically. And second, you can't even measure your own success with your own outcomes because of how random and unpredictable our world is. And third, we're not even wired to change the world. Like those guys like Elon and Steve Jobs, they're just built different. So with all that being said, what can you do? I think the only thing you can do is focus on yourself and your own actions within your life, your friends and family, and your community, and then just have faith and believe that it'll ripple into the world in the right way.